All right, welcome everyone. We are so glad that you're here with us today. If you would, please help us test the chat, make sure that we have it working properly by putting in where you're joining us from and what the weather is like where you are today. In Indianapolis today, it is a cloudy 47 degrees. We've actually had rain, which we haven't had for quite some time. So yeah, looks a little different out there, doesn't it, Scott?
Oh, it's just fall-tastic out there, though. I'm in front of the most beautiful burnt orange tree.
Oh, that's lovely.
I'm feeling very spooky right now, very fall. So,
Oh, I love it. Fall is amazing. I hope where you're joining us from that you're getting some beautiful fall weather as well. All right. So let's go ahead before we start. I want to run through a couple of items for you. So if you need the dial-in number for any reason, it's up on the screen here, but I'm going to say it out loud as well. It's 1-669-900-6833. And in just a few moments, I'll drop that into the chat in case you need it. Also, I want to go over a few features that we have today that will make it so that you can interact with us. So if you notice, we have live transcripts available. And if you click on that, you're going to be able to see the subtitles come up in case you need that. Also, we have two different ways for you to interact, chat and Q&A. The chat is actually a really great place for you to drop in any kind of responses that you want to share with everyone in the group. Maybe you have some best practices you want to share that would help others. Please drop that in there. But if you have a focused question that you would like our panelists to answer today, please drop that into the Q&A. It helps us to be able to sort those out and see those separately. Also, just a couple other housekeeping items before we head in today. All right, there you can see all of your options. The resources mentioned will be linked and they will be sent to you after this session today. So you're going to get the slides and the recording. So please don't be writing links down furiously. You will be able to access all of this after the session today. Any questions that are not answered live or in the Q&A will be addressed after the session via a follow-up from us. And if you need further assistance at any time, don't forget you can reach out to our wonderful support team at support@bloomerang.com. So without any further ado, we are going to be launching a poll. So let's go ahead and launch this poll. What is your current way of sending email campaigns? So do you use a third-party sender? Do you use Bloomerang's email function? Do you use your own company's email address? Or do you not really have a current email system for campaigns? Oh, I see someone's joining us from North Carolina. Awesome, wonderful. All right, people are answering here. I'll give you one more minute to answer. All right. It looks like a very large percentage, 66% are using Bloomerang's email function. I'm going to go ahead and share these results. And it looks like 21% are using a third-party sender. And then in close running for third, we have using their own company email and then not having an email system. This is good information as we're going through today to be thinking about ways that you can use this information to help your company, your organization, consider how you could use email in really effective ways. So awesome. Thank you so much. And now, without further ado, I am going to turn this over to your amazing presenter today, Scott Morin, who is one of my favorite Bloomies in the world. So Scott, take it away.
Oh, thank you, Margie. I'm always excited to be here. Bloomerang Academy is fun. Yeah, let me just kick over to the picture of me right there. So I've been at Bloomerang for just over 4 years now. Started in support. I've ended back over in support as well. So now I do support engineering. I did have some time in product marketing with Diana and Margie. So this whole time though, I've just been putting my my skills to good use here at Bloomerang, been able to do a lot of troubleshooting and some of the ones and zeros stuff on the back end. But My favorite part of Bloomerang is that all the customers have such neat missions that they are working for and towards. A lot of nonprofit friends have gotten to meet along the way. So fantastic place to be. But I am a human outside of work. I enjoy playing drums. I am a big animal lover, and you'll probably catch that I enjoy cracking jokes and pulling people's legs. So it's gonna be a good time. So today we're gonna be talking about email design tips. This is a question that really stemmed from many of our users going, well, how can I just make emails look better? Or how do I use the email tool? So, because there's some cases where personally, I think it's a very intuitive feature that we have, but maybe you're brand new to Bloomerang. Maybe you have been given a task of sending email campaigns and you want to just zhuzh it up. And I'm hoping I can give some helpful hints and tips to make sure your emails are looking their best. So we have some best practices, some tips and samples, and then we're going to spend a good chunk of our time in Bloomerang. And I'm going to give a lot of time at the end for Q&A. So we should have probably 15 or 20 minutes at the end of me just going over any tips or tricks that you have, any outstanding questions on. So feel free to drop those in that chat or in that Q&A section. And then at the end, we'll go through and try to knock out any of the questions live. So before we do, just as an FYI, if you're in Bloomerang, there is a help and video section. So here's a screenshot of the application. And if you click the question mark icon, there's a help and video section, which will take you to our knowledge base and support portal. I'm going to be mentioning some articles that are in our knowledge base, and some of the best practices that we offer are written down and have some walkthroughs there in our support portal. All right, so let's kick it off. I'm going to stop sharing that poll. There we go. Email design tips. So I want to, before we dive into the email editor, here's just a framework of designing emails. One is that design is there to reinforce your message. And I emphasize that being, you need to define what the message of the email is. Don't just throw a smattering of text and images to your audience, but what is the thing that you're trying to send? And then how is everything else, the images, the buttons, the call to actions, everything reinforce that specific message. Next is the limitations of HTML. We're going to be talking through some of these today, but I have these linked to a really helpful article. MailChimp is kind of seen as one of the quote unquote authorities on email and mass email. And this is just a really helpful guide to understand what you can and can't do with email. So for example, many people ask, oh, can I just like embed video directly into an email? That's not a Bloomerang limitation. That is just an HTML email limitation. And we're going to get into that a little bit here. And the last 2 points, which I think are really important, are to keep things simple. You don't want to just inoculate your readers and your donors with too much info. Otherwise, they're just going to skip or swipe past this email. And then design with mobile devices. Most people nowadays are going to open the email on their mobile device. So even though you may be editing, and today we'll be editing on a desktop, at the end of the day, make sure you preview and look at things from the mobile point of view. It's just going to be crucial to make sure everything looks right once it's in the palm of your hand. Let's talk about readability. So in today's world, you're constantly connected. There's probably hundreds of emails. I believe there's an average of most people in the United States get about 100 emails per day. That could be from like receipts and transactions, and but a lot of it could be spam. But essentially, you get a lot of emails. So how can you make sure that your message gets across, that your subject line is approachable, and that as people do open your email, that they can skim and read quickly enough through your email. So to help with that readability, make sure that it's not just a wall of text. So you want to make sure you're moving your reader's eyes across the page. 2 fonts, 3 colors max. I would say there might be a little bit of wiggle room depending upon your organization's branding and logos, but for the most part, I would say if you can stick to 2 fonts, so maybe one that is like a title font and then one that's more like a body or a paragraph font, and then keep it to 3 colors. Maybe there's a couple org colors that are custom to your organization, or maybe there's a certain campaign look that you're going for. But if you get too wild with colors and too wild with different fonts, it will look messy and people will tend to just not engage. And then same with readability is keep links obvious. Keep the link you want clicked most at the top. Don't put it all the way at the bottom like it's the cherry on top of the email. If anything, you want first thing first. When they open the email, what's the thing you want them to do? So keep that link obvious and right in front of them. 5 or fewer calls to action. It's not going to be helpful if you have 10 buttons and 10 different ways you want them to go. Honestly, even 5 seems like a lot. So whether it's helping them increase their gift, maybe it's signing up for volunteering, or even just checking out an article or a blog post, what is the one thing you want them to do? And maybe are there 2 or 3 other things that you can move down the page? And again, simplify and shorten. If you feel like your email is too long, it probably is too long. So look for ways to simplify, be succinct and be brief with your message. Another helpful hint, when I think about creating an email, is the 60-40 text image ratio. This is somewhat of a golden rule or a good guide for when you're looking at an email, how much balance is there between images and text. And you can go too much in the opposite way. So 60 would be 60% text and 40% images. You don't want to just have all images. I've seen some orgs, they'll make an email template and it might be like one giant image down the center, or it might be 3 images just stacked, and maybe they took like a screenshot of the newsletter they wanted. It's not a good recommendation. One, especially if people don't have images to load in their email inbox, you're going to just get a bunch of broken links. So you need to have text, at least if images don't load for someone, they know what the email is about. They don't feel like it's spam or, and speaking of spam, if it's only images, spam filters can catch those. They might go, oh, there's nothing in this email, it's just images. They're wanting them to click on the images. This might be spam, and mark that with a red flag. So just as a good balance, you want a little bit more text than you do images, but you don't want to have 95% text and then just one little image. Try to have a nice healthy balance. And then alt text. This is mainly for accessibility and screen readers, but this can also help as people are searching for your email in their inbox. Making sure you're labeling your images appropriately. And I'll show you how to do that in Bloomerang's editor. All right, some other quick tips on images. We recommend using Chrome with Bloomerang. You can use Firefox and other browsers, but for today we're using Chrome. That's just mainly a recommendation. And as far as bandwidth for images, try to keep your images between 500 to 800. For a 2-column layout, if you have images, maybe a max of 265 pixels wide. And then for thin, wide layouts, maybe it's like a thin column on the left and a wide column on the right, 165 and 375. Those are just some recipe numbers we have for general recommendations. What's nice in Bloomerang is you can resize images after you've uploaded them. So if you have an image that's a little too large, you can always resize it down. But we get that question a lot of what's the recommended image size? I would say about 500 to 800 for an image. All right, so that was essentially the best practices, things that we recommend. I want to look at a sample, and apologies, it's a little blurry, but this still gets the point across. This is the same organization, and it's a before and an after of their newsletter they send out. And I'm curious, and maybe I'll just have people chat in just for a little bit of crowd work here, a little crowd participation. From what you can see, minus it being a little blurry, what stands out to you is maybe not being so great about this email newsletter. Yeah, Dacia says busy. What else stands out? Is that the group consensus, overwhelming amount of text, too wide, too much, too messy? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my eye doesn't even know where to start. Like if I was to open this up, where do I even want to go? Yeah, create a line of the path. I love that, Allie. Yep. 2 columns. Yeah, don't make sense. That's exactly right. Yep. Awesome. So I think we're all on the same page. And I think that's important is, when we're building emails, I think we want to add so much information. And I've been on this side when I worked at a nonprofit, you build a newsletter and I want to add this, and this thing's coming up next month. And oh, we had this one blog post from that guest and we should add that in there. And next thing you know is your newsletter looks like this, and it's just too much. So it's always good to step back, And that's why I recommend to send a test email. Send your test email, go take a 5-minute break, come back to the email, and then take a look at it and see what it sounds like. It's kind of like, I'm a musician, it's like recording. You know, you're in the studio and if you're recording for hours and hours and hours, you get caught up in the song, but then you take a break and you come back to it and you go, oh my gosh, we missed these whole big ideas just because I was too caught up in the music. So it's kind of the same with when you're doing visual things like this. Maybe take a break, come back to it and realize, oh, I can really cut some of this, or wow, this is too busy. So let's see the after. And so this is their newsletter after. I still think there's a few things they can be improving, but ultimately, I think it's a big step forward. And feel free to chat back in what you noticed. It's a little bit better about this newsletter here. But for what I can see and what I love is they have the color scheme has been defined down. So they have less colors, but really it's just that kind of branded green. And then they have that donate button right in the orange. So you know exactly when you open it up that the main thing they're wanting you to do is donate. I love that they have the top stories are uniform. So they have like a side thumbnail with the description and a learn more button. So they keep it to about 4 other call to action. So they have like that make your plans and learn more down there. And then what I love is that they have outside of donate, the next thing they want you to look at is this featured parks slideshow. So I think the big difference is, you know, not treating, I'll go back to the before, is this seems more like a website and this feels more like a newsletter or kind of an informational. So keep that in mind, is that don't try to recreate your website or a blog post in an email campaign. So again, simplicity, keep things short. But let's talk about designing Bloomerang. We're going to dive in here in a few minutes, but what we're going to look at today is the layout and structure. So how do you set up an email? We're going to show them from scratch, and then look at every design element there is in Bloomerang's editor. So images, videos, buttons, and social media buttons. So I'm going to save that for later. Jump into Bloomerang. And let me know if the screen size is a little too small. I've increased a little bit just so we can see every element on the page. This is Bloomerang, and here's the email section here. If I click on this email tab, I have all my emails listed out on this email templates page. And from here, I can click on, let me give you a quick teaser, but we're going the end of the road today. So we're going to be building this template. So notice there's a large header at the top. There's we have some merge fields. We're going to show how to add those in. To personalize, call to actions, side-by-side images, another paragraph, and then we have this video thumbnail and some social media icons. So how do we get from a scratch email to this? And we're going to try to do this in record time today. All right, so if I go back to emails, I'm going to click new. We have starter templates, some Giving Tuesday templates. I just want to highlight these real quick before we jump in. But these are some starter templates that have some canned language that we've come up, whipped up that I think will get you jump started on your Giving Tuesday communications. So feel free to jump in here and get some ideas for a Giving Tuesday campaign. I'm going to start with just the starter template. And we have these sample starter templates here. And today I'm just going to click this simple constituent one. Move a few things around. All right. So first thing I do, I'm going to just clear everything out. So if I highlight here and hit this trash can, now I've kind of started from scratch here. What I want to highlight is Bloomerang's email editor. There is this content section, what's called rows, which these just click these gray boxes, and then the settings. First thing, I'm going to click on rows. And for today, I want to have just a full width row. So I'm going to drag that where I want it. I want like a half and half, like that 2 column as we saw. So I'm actually going to add another one below because I'm going to have 2 different pieces of content. But now I'll do this half and half and drag that in. Notice now there's 2 columns here. And I'm going to just drag 2 more single rows. I don't think I'll actually need one of these, but let's just add them all in there anyway. Now, if I go to content, personally, this is the way I like to do email campaigns. If I'm starting from scratch, I just like starting with a skeleton like this, and I can see exactly where I'm going. So then I'm going to drag an image all the way to the top. I want text right below that. So I'm going to just make sure it's in the same row. Notice how when I am in a certain row, this whole row is green. Now, if I go below, I'm in this separate row. So I have 5 rows here. So I'm going to keep this in this top row. I want to have a button. So I'm going to also put this in this top row. Actually, you don't need this one. So I'm going to delete it. And then below, I'm going to do 2 more images side by side. So click and drag those in there. And then I want like a description of each image. And I also want like a button below that. So I'm going to do another text. But notice I want to make sure it's only half highlighted in this column. See, I could also, if I drag it down here, notice how that green bar is all the way across. I want it up here in this row right below the image. So now it's cut in half down the middle. So I do text and text, and I want 2 buttons right below those as well. So we're just building out the skeleton. Perfect for October, perfect for the spooky season that we have. Sorry, skeleton. I'll try to, my brain's not like racking for Halloween puns. Feel free to add any in the chat. That'll make me happy. All right, next is text. I'm gonna add one more at the bottom, like a full width text. And I wanna add a video thumbnail. And then last, I wanna add our social icons. So I'm gonna add those all the way at the bottom right here. Okay, so now I have my structure. This is looking great. So next we're gonna add in, let's add in images. So I'm gonna click browse up here, and I'm gonna grab the header image. So if I go into, this is Bloomerang's file manager, and click my files. You can make folders if you want to organize your photos and find them a little bit easier per campaign, or maybe you have specific ones for logos. You can also search for free photos. So you can either upload from your computer, or you can search and get public domain photos that are free to use all the time. You have to pay for them or anything. I'm going to just go ahead and grab this one. And then you're going to see this all day. But if I click on the image, notice on this right, there's content properties. So I can change things specific to this image. So maybe right now, this is the image link. That's fine. Here's the alt text I was talking about. So this is where I want to add a label of what this image is describing. So here, I'll just put people volunteering. Volunteering, there you go. And I can add an action to this image if someone wants to, let's say if I have like my hosted donation form here, I can add that in as a link. So if they click just on the image, it'll also take them to my donation form. All right. And then what I want to also add is padding. So notice how right now this image is taking up this whole container. If I add padding down here, I'm going to add 20. So now I have that 20 pixels of padding all the way around my image. And we'll see how that looks later, but I like kind of adding that padding to everything to space it out and make it easier to read and skim through. Okay, so now we're going to just copy in my text. Honestly, this is the hardest part of email campaigns, is coming up with the copy, but I have it magically ready over here. So one thing I recommend, another little tip, is as you're pasting into places in really in applications anywhere online, but I would recommend to Control-Shift-V if you're using a PC or Windows. That is a formatless paste. That means it won't carry over any links, any formatting. So you can rest assured that the text you're adding in there is just text. It's not going to have any stray formatting from like if you're coming from Microsoft Word or something. So I pasted in my text, and notice right here I have these merge fields. So like latest transaction amount. I can even bold that if I want. So merge fields will personalize the information with the donor's information on the profile. So to see how that's added, if I just remove this, I click insert merge field, and I want informal name, and click insert field. So now it adds that asterisk in the curly brackets with informal name. Notice there's a little space between the exclamation point and my merge field. I'm just going to remove that. That way it says, hey, and it says, hey, it's, Scott, and I'll have, and right there on the exclamation point. Just what I want. All right, so next, this button, I'm going to customize this. So if I just click on button, maybe I want to say this changes to increase your gift today. And I can bold this. So now things that I recommend is know your font size. So in this case, my paragraph is 14. Here I want to have my buttons. I'll keep those also at 14 here. So those look fine. What I can do with the button though, so I want to have this also linked to my form. So I'm going to take that URL again. And we're going to add the action over here to open that web page. And then for the color, I can change this to any color. I'm going to keep it as this light blue. So here's that hex code. But here's a little fun trick. If I want this to look more like a pill-shaped button instead of just a kind of rounded square, I can go down here to border radius. Right now it's set to 4. If I increase this up to 20, that will round off the edges. And then what I can do is then down here for border, if I click more options, I just want to add a border to the bottom. So I'm going to add this light blue, but I'm going to just kind of make it a little bit lighter. And then I'm going to add about 5 on the bottom. So now I have like a little bit of a somewhat makes a DIY kind of a shadow on the bottom there. So I think it makes this button just look clickable and kind of pop out on the page. So just a little tip. So that is that button. It's all set. Everything looks good there. I can also increase this actually to 16. That's what I wanted there. So I want my buttons to be 16 and I want my body to be 14. All right, next let's do these side-by-side images. I want to show a trick for how to make sure they're the exact same dimensions. So I'll click browse. Let's pick 2 that are definitely different dimensions. So how about this one here, people sorting. And now let's have one that is long ways. So we'll pick, let's do this one where they're helping that way. So notice this does not look great. These are totally different sizes. I get this question a lot. How do I make these look even? The simple trick is if I click on this image, go to apply effects, and I go to crop, make sure you pick the exact same one. So let's say I want this 3x2. You will lose some of the image. So, you're making it the same dimensions. So I'll kind of center on these people here, click apply and save. So that was the 3x2 dimension. And so now that it's cropped down. And then what I can do here is for the exact same one, just to make sure, crop 3x2. Looks like this one's already in 3x2. So I'll just hit apply. So just make sure there's the exact same dimension. So if you pick 3x2 for one, pick 3x2 for the other one, if they're going to be side by side. And then this is where that padding really helps. So right now these are butted up against each other. I'll add alt text. So I'll say volunteers, also volunteers. And then what I can do is if I click on this image, I'm going to add just 10 padding to this one, and I'm going to add 10 padding to this one. So now those are spaced out a little bit more. So now I'm going to add my text magically. There we go. And also over here. All right, so keep those at 14. That looks good. And we're also going to add padding, let's see, to these. So we're just going to add 20 to all this text. Helps it kind of stand out on the page, look a little more light, not quite as text heavy. So now these buttons, I'm going to also change these to the same. What I can do for a little trick, let's say if these are all going to the same place, or you like the formatting one, I can just copy this. And then I could drag this to where I want it. So now I could just delete these actually. Whoops. So let me just get that. Let's try that again. There we go. And I'll duplicate that one and also move it up there. Whoops, grab the wrong one. There we go. All right, so now I could, let's say for this one, I would say sign up to volunteer. And this one, I want to have it say maybe join our mailing list. And then I can update the links to each of these. So let's say this one, maybe I want just to go to bloomerang.co. I always recommend if you have a link, add this whole protocol. So HTTPS. So if you're going to a website, notice like here, always grab the whole thing, not just right where it starts from the backslashes. So that'll make sure that the links aren't going to break if they go on any kind of email inbox. So maybe I'll do that /home. So that's our sign up here, and I'm going to just do the same thing over here. Okay. So now those buttons are set up. Next, we're going to add just a header with some text, just to mirror what we had earlier. So I'm going to add 2 texts actually. So we'll do spread the word. I'm going to center this. So I have my font toolbar here, so I can just center. I'm going to increase this to 18. And I'm going to change the color to that blue again. So I can go back to my hex code here. Let's find that hex code. What is it? 3AA EE0. So I can make these match perfectly, no guessing. There's a hex code there. Whoops. I am just fat fingering everything today. All right. There we go. I got to take this mark out. So there's that blue. There we go. Perfect. And we'll add this last piece of content here. So it didn't carry over my my bullet points. So I'll just highlight this and then click bullets. There we go. This is looking great. This is also 14. So everything looks good here. All right, last couple things is we're going to add this video thumbnail. So I'm going to grab this YouTube link here. I can even do this share link right here. So copy. So for the video thumbnail, this won't play the video like I was mentioning in the email. This will just create a thumbnail automatically from the URL. So if I have a YouTube or Vimeo URL, I'll just say this is our Bloomerang about it. Even auto-populates with the title and everything. And I'll add a play icon. Right now that's a little light, so I can change this to dark. And maybe I want this to be a rectangle. There we go. Okay, so that's all set up. And then last is my social icons. Maybe I don't want these colorful schemes. I can just change this to this kind of dark gray. I can add more padding around it just to space it out a bit. And now the fun part is just adding padding to everything. So I'm going to add 20 to all my elements that are single column. Right now it's set to 10. We'll go to 20 here. And then these are 10 and 10 on each side. So this is fine the way it looks. All right, we're almost there. Almost in record time, I think. I haven't been counting, but it has felt quick. The last thing I want to show off is the settings tab here. So here we have the content area width. So this is the entire width of the email. So right now it's set to 500 pixels across. So I could increase if I really want to. For best practices and for mobile, I would recommend anywhere between 400 to 600. We're going to keep it right at 500. Another little trick is right now it's a little plain. So what I can do is in settings, I have my background color, which is the entire email. You see where all this is highlighted, and in my content area background, that's everything that's in this middle column. So notice how these are highlighted compared to out here. So what I can do is add the background color of F1, 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 which is like a super light gray, just a pinch above white. And in the content area, I'm going to change this one just to white. So now I have this kind of lane in the middle that's white, and then this background that is gray. I think it just helps the email sort of pop, makes it look a little less intimidating because now it's just a skinnier email content that you can just glide right through. And then just to really add a little bit extra, what I can do is maybe on this 2 column where I want to really stand out, I could click on the row specifically. So now on my rows tab here, I'm only affecting what's highlighted. So that always kind of see where your highlight is and notice that now I'm only working in this box. So I want the background for the content just to be transparent here as well. So now these are sort of like floating. And now I have 2 separate sections of content. So I have kind of a break here for this gallery, and then it continues on. Just a fun little tip. I think it helps break up the typical look of email campaigns. So, all right, I'm pretty happy with the way this is looking. So this is all looks good. Down here real quick is the contact information. So this is, notice, locked on every email campaign. So it's required that every mass email has your organization's info, address, and unsubscribe options. So you can move this if you want to move it to a different section, but it will need to be on the campaign. All right. Last is these preview layouts and the readability test. So what we need to do first is go to let's check our previews out. So this will look like on desktop. I think things are looking pretty good. And then what we can do is there's this mobile option here, and I can see how everything's gonna, notice that this is mobile friendly, so it didn't just shrink everything down. So the text is still that readable 14 pixels. It's just the images got moved, and notice that my 2-column gallery, instead of being side by side, it now stacks on top of each other. And what I love about having a change in that background is now I can see the gallery is one image, and I'm picking back up to a different kind of call to action section. So that's why it helps to break up the background colors and help kind of scroll through different places. So I think this looks great. So what we need to do before we send a test, which I recommend, is we just need to add filters and details. So I'm going to click on details up here. We're just going to name this and hunger campaign. And we'll do October. I need to assign the purpose. Here I'm going to be doing, let's say it's like a newsletter. So I'm going to just highlight newsletter here. Maybe there's some events in here as well. Maybe it's around Giving Tuesday. So you can assign multiple email address. And then for subject line, I recommend that it's something that will catch the reader's eye, something that will pop off their email inbox page. So perhaps it's something as simple as just better than just like October newsletter, something that will catch their eye. So, and then from name, I'm going to just do Scott, and then I'll do my work email. Okay. For filters, right now it's being sent to every active constituent in my database. Maybe I want it to be filtered by a specific attribute or a specific another constituent field. Maybe it's just anybody that has transactions. I can just do has transactions, has any transactions. That'll cut down my list a little bit. I don't have to worry about if they have email addresses or not. Bloomerang does it automatically. So now I'm going to just click save, and I'm going to just keep editing just for the sake of doing that. All right, so now notice I have the send test option. So I click send, and I can send up to 3 emails at a time. So maybe I want to send one to myself, one to my boss, maybe one to a volunteer, just to get their eyes on it, see their take, if there's any final edits. And then there is this readability test. So it'll scan the text, and it's going to be looking for that you test. So you use the word you 6 times and we 15 times. You should try to use it twice as many yous as we's. So try to really engage your audience by saying you instead of just we the whole time. Make it donor-centric language. And in Fletch Kincaid, this is a standard in reading level. So just as far as the amount of words, the type of words, the sentence structure that you use, you want to try to keep it between 6th and 8th grade. Mine's right at 6th grade, so perfect. And you can even read more about those from those links. So scan test is fine for this purpose today, or the readability test, I'm sorry. And now we will just click save and preview. And then what I love about this preview page is it gives you a breakdown of what's going to happen. So for my filters, yes, I found 292, but how many had an email address? So only 129. And then of those 129 emails, 48 are getting skipped. So I can see why they're skipped here. So some are either just bad email addresses, some have opted out, or some do not have a matching email address. So for example, Austin Powers has not signed up for newsletters. He's still signed up for other emails, but just not this particular one. And I can even see a design preview. So I can see exactly, so for Elaine here, I can see it's going to highlight her name here. And her latest transaction amount. And I get another kind of preview of what Elaine will see with this email. I always recommend to send the test just because sometimes this preview, I would say it gives you a really good idea, but if you want to see how Gmail or another major email provider is going to handle the inbox, I would recommend setting that test email. This is just looking in the browser. This is not how email inboxes would necessarily display the email. So hence it's a preview and not necessarily the real thing. So keep that in mind, but you can scroll through the first handful just to get an idea of your merge fields and make sure it's aligning correctly. And then what I can finally do is when I'm ready, I can hit send now, or I can schedule for later. Maybe I want to send this next week on a specific time. I could either change this to once, I could have it recurring and go on a weekly or monthly basis. For this example, I'm going to just do once, and we'll do, let's say, how about Tuesday the 1st? And I want to go, let's say early in the morning. So it's going to be 9:30 a.m. And I'll hit save and schedule. And now I'm back to this email list page. And here I have my campaign notes that's scheduled for once, and all my changes and our beautiful template has been saved, and I can come back in here and edit if I need to. Okay, last I'm going to just jump back to the slides real quick to point out a few more things, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. So let me pull this back up. So some final best practices, deliverability. We cover this in our other Academy class, but set up SPF. So SPF, that is the secret to making sure your email can be sent from your organization's domain. So if you use like a custom domain, like if it's volunteers at scottsorganization.com, if you want to use that from email address, you have to set up an SPF record. We have this very easy walkthrough of how to set that up, and our support team can always help you get that configured. And then again, best practice, preview the layout on desktop and mobile and send that test email. Finally, we have some of our resources. So as I pointed out, we have our Giving Tuesday templates since that's coming up. Get excited, but Giving Tuesday is just around the corner. So we have some templates there that just jumpstart communications. And then I just want to highlight our resources. Again, we will be sending all these slides and everything after today's class, but we have some really great stuff on Giving Tuesday ideas, editing emails, toolkits for communications and messaging, all that available for free. So pretty neat stuff. Before I jump to the poll, I'm going to just cut back and answer any questions in Bloomerang. So I'm going to hang out in Bloomerang and check the chats. All right.
Hey, Scott.
Yes, Margie.
There was a question early on about an organization that wanted to insert their logo, but they're having trouble deciding on the proper size for the logo. Is there any way that you could kind of talk a little bit about like what is probably recommended for that kind of thing? Yeah, so just to understand, their logo is just not quite the right size for using an email templates. Let's see. A good comfort level. I'm trying to pull that up. Taking up too much space. Okay. Yeah. So I would recommend, it depends on how your logo looks, I suppose, but if it's going to be like the header image, here's one thing I will say for best practices is make this an engaging image, the top one. I won't say I advise against, but having just your logo at the top doesn't necessarily tell the story you might be wanting to tell. So try to find imagery that's supporting the message you're sending to your audience. If you just start with your logo, that's fine, but I think there's better ways to communicate to your donors. So I use these examples not by mistake, but I do find that, and I can't find the resource, but there was a study that was showing that people respond to emotional imagery and emotional images, and one of the best ways to convey that emotion and that and communicate is people. So images of people doing things tends to be the most engaging. So having just like a building or a space or just a logo may not pull as much engagement as having your volunteers, the people that you're helping, or your staff, even just a staff image. So I would try to advise on getting creative with images at the top, and then for logos, if you do have one, maybe it's near the bottom. To answer your question directly, though,
if it's too large, so if I'm going to add like another image down here near the bottom, like a logo, for example, here's the little blossom, perfect. So if I insert here, so that might be a little too large. So what I can do is just hit, instead of auto width, I can deselect that and kind of drop it down. And I would say probably under 100 pixels. It depends on just how the way the email campaign looks, but that's how I would add an org logo. If that answers the question, I would probably just either have it near the bottom here or somewhere else, kind of along the lines of, let your message come across first. All right, let me try to go through some of these other questions. Okay, I'm gonna go through the Q&A ones first, and then I'll try to cut through the chat ones. I'm not sure which have been answered so far. Change the font of the organization, contact info at the bottom. So yes, you can change the global font in settings. So I can go to default font. And if I change from Arial to like Georgia, notice that will change this content information. However, the actual info is pulled from your organization name. So that is the way in settings, there's global font and default font, and that will change that org info. Great question. How would a person sign to receive emails generated in Bloomerang? Great question. So you would need to add a link. So I'm assuming maybe it's before sending this. So you could add like a link to your, if I go to a website integration and settings, we have an email signup form. And I can do like a test one. This one has to be kind of previewed, but you can essentially make a test signup form for people to register their email address. Here's just like a very quick HTML preview, but you can save this and embed it on your site. So Bloomerang has the tools to be able to have your donors discover and sign up for emails. Great question there. All right. Will emails automatically generate interactions? Yes. Very great question. Once a person has been sent an email, so if I go, who had one, I believe. So notice I have my email here for receipts. I also have like mass emails and just specific. So every interaction will go to their timeline. And then you can see, let's see. It will show mass email. I got to find someone that has done it in my database real quick. There we go. So there we go. So there's the last one. So the mass email, it'll show the tracking stats. It'll even show the generated email for that particular constituent, along with some engagement. So did they open, did they unsubscribe or mark as spam? All that will be created automatically by Bloomerang. Great question. Okay. Let me dive back into the chat questions. Let's see. And Diana or Margie, if there's some I've missed that have seemed a little more popular, I'm happy to jump on those.
Scott, would you show how to switch back and forth between the mobile and the desktop view?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice. If I go back to the design tab, I can click preview layout right here in this tab. And then there's two options for desktop and mobile. So right now I'm seeing this desktop preview, and I can also click mobile and then get a general preview of what will be on mobile. Obviously, a lot of mobile devices are slightly different dimensions and heights. So this is just a good idea of what it'll look like on a mobile device. Okay. Let's see. Yes, so the general comment for changing the font color for the info at the bottom. So yes, you can. At the moment, these are locked in. So that's really to prevent people from like changing this to like all white and kind of blurring it out. So this content is locked. You can change the link colors. So if you have like branded colors for links, let's say I want this to be like this. Let's go back to my blue here. the unsubscribe links will be updated to that specific link color here. Let me make sure this preview is shown. There we go. Those have already been clicked. I think that's why they're already highlighted that way. But yeah, as far as the content and the org info, that is primarily locked just so it's ensuring that we are automatically including it in those email sends. Okay, let's see. How to use content rows and setting bar. Great question. So honestly, these are the Academy classes that are built for those. So we do have some help articles on creating emails. We have some past designing email Academy classes, so they might have a little different take. It's still me doing it, but you might have a few other things if you need just some extra practice in understanding those contents and rows. But really the key to the content rows, and as I was showing off, is I just recommend starting with that skeleton of the rows you want to have. So just dropping everything you want first, and then kind of building out content inside of those rows. Really great question. So, okay, if you have 2 email addresses on file for a constituent and the unsubscribe for one, are they effectively unsubscribing both? So if someone has, let me go to another constituent. So if their primary email address here was to be unsubscribed, then their other one would need to be marked as primary first. So now if you're saying that like there's 2 different constituents that share an email address, then once that particular email address is unsubscribed, then neither of those constituents would get the email. So it's by email address and the one that is marked as primary to kind of keep it short and sweet. Let's see. Any other questions that stood out, Diana or Margie? Sorry, I'm kind of
Yeah, no.
not much fun me just staring at the screen looking through these chats. Let's see.
No, here's a great one. From Diane, she wants to know, is there a way to have full data on how many emails were opened versus going to constituent by constituent?
That's a really great question. So once an email has been sent, I can go to show filters here in this email list page and go to sent for status. And then let's go to my retention campaign one. These are test emails, so we're going to see how they perform. But on each campaign that you're sent, there is a tracking tab. So I can click on tracking. So this one was launched and sent to 7 emails. I can see that 100% were delivered. And I can see from the open stats, 43% opened. And I can even click through on these and see the exact people that opened. So I can click through, everything's interactive. I can even search for it if I'm looking for someone that like, hey, I didn't get it, I'm not sure. Or you want to check to see if someone did get an email. I can just search right in here and look for a specific donor. And then I could even export these lists to Excel if I want to kind of run a list or just download that list for other campaigns or for further data, scrubbing or whatever you need to do, that can be available there as well. Great question.
We have another question, Scott.
Yeah.
Is there a way to see yes, I'm sorry. Is there a way to see a list of full data for all of the emails to see which ones were more popular?
Okay. So this one I would recommend a report. So what you can do is if I was to build a new report and do interactions, so I'm looking at all the interactions of my campaigns. Then what I could do is just pull in the subjects of my emails. So if I knew that one was, let's say the retention campaign, I think was one. Let's see if that pulls in. Nope. Let's just try newsletter. what I could do is just pull in, I would just grab the subject line of, it's like, we need your support today. See, it says one hasn't sent yet, but essentially what you would do is by each subject line, there we go. And I could do like an or, so maybe another subject. I think one might just be give. Let's do that. Just for examples. All right. And then what I can do is group these by the subject. So if I click subject and group by this column, now I've grouped up all of my emails, and then I can even add columns for further information. So like has any clicks or is opened. I don't really need the note here. I don't really need the purpose. So just like that, I have a report of my mass emails. I can see each one is the donor, if they clicked on it, if they opened it. And then what I can do is download this to Excel. And if I wanted to, kind of further, display this data or create different, graphs, I could do so there. I can even collapse this to one row. And then I have each campaign. That's a little bit easier to read. So now I don't have it per constituent now, but at least I can see if I wanted to add like another interaction, a column for, let's say, I think we had opened or has opened survey. I can even do last month. I want to see who made those email campaigns. So things like that. Report to be the way to go to see all that data in one place. Otherwise, I would just recommend for each subject or each campaign, just going to this tracking tab and be able to pull, whoops, wrong one. And being able to just see that visualizer right here. Good questions though. Got about 5 more minutes. If there's any others that are feel more popular or urgent, happy to jump on those.
Yeah, so we have one, it says, is it possible to see a constituent's overall engagement, like they're open and clicks, rather than clicking through each campaign?
So for a specific constituent, that would be on their profile, if you're talking about their engagement overall. So in this example, what I could do is either A, look at their engagement level here. I can click through their mass emails, or if I want to run a report on those constituents, I could do that kind of similar report. It would be another interaction report, but I could group by the donor name. So instead of grouping by here, so I'll do channel is mass email. So here's all my mass emails. I can group this by the donor name. So now I'm going to see every mass email I've sent to each donor. So like Acme Corps sent all of these. Bad ticker cardiology, I can see. And then what I can do is add like the is opened. And the has any clicks. So here's like a super quick report on all my donors and if they've opened or clicked each mass email that I've sent them. So here I can see like Doug Banks, for example, we've sent 14 the last few years, and I can see he's opened a majority of these. So that's probably the quickest way to pull that information from Bloomerang, just right there. Okay. Great stuff. I'm going to just send one last, I think there's one final poll. So if you are a Bloomerang Lite user, or if you've been in today's webinar and you realize, oh, I don't have like this emails tab on the left side, you might be in Bloomerang Lite. So if you're interested in follow-up, our team can certainly connect with you and make sure that you have the things that you need to be successful in fundraising. So especially with email content. I think Bloomerang's email editor and sender is a really great tool for nonprofits. It's simple to use. I think it rivals the simplicity of MailChimp. Don't hurt me, but I know there's a lot of MailChimp users. I use MailChimp a lot, but I think it's a pretty easy design editor to use, and it gets a lot of the same functionality. So without further ado, we got about 2 extra minutes. So thank you all for attending today. It's been really fun. Thanks for being so engaged and asking lots of questions. So I know, have a happy Halloween for those celebrating Halloween. We've got a few days till that. I'm gonna be dressed as the Hamburglar this year. So what's everyone else dressing up as this year? If anyone's even going to any Halloween parties or trick-or-treating or whatnot, I'm super excited. Best time of the year. So all right, I'll let that poll hang out for just a few seconds. Looks like just about everyone answered there. So, oh, Carmen San Diego and corn. That's great. Love it. Yeah, me and my wife are we're gonna be Birdie and Hamburglar from McDonald's. So it should be a really good time. So
That's
very
old school,
cool.
Scott. I love
It's
it.
old school. I know. I feel like there's a little bit of resurgence with the Hamburglar nowadays, but I've always been a big McDonald's fan myself.
That is so awesome. Scott, thank you so much. It's always
Yeah,
a
you're welcome.
pleasure. We love having you on here. And as we already stated, if there are any questions that we weren't able to address or get to during the webinar, we'll be happy to follow up with you afterwards. So thank you all for being here today. We really appreciate it. And we hope you have a great afternoon.